Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Food System Solutions webinar focused on the essential role of water in food systems and food security. The webinar is hosted by the UN Food Systems Coordination Hub in collaboration with FAO's Land and Water Division. And we have an exciting agenda ahead of us, which includes a presentation on how water is reflected in several national food systems pathways, followed by a panel of speakers who will give their perspective on the interlinkages between water and food systems and why these interlinkages are important to achieve sustainable agriculture and food security. My name is Mia Madsen. I'm a policy officer at the UN Food Systems Coordination Hub, and I will be moderating this webinar today. But before we go ahead, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Lifeng Li, who is Director of the FAO Land and Water Division, for some opening remarks. Over to you, Mr. Lifeng.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mia. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. It is truly a great pleasure for me to open this webinar that is co-organized by FAO and also the UN Food System Hub, and to speak on water in the national food system pathways on behalf of FAO. And certainly you all agree with me that if there's no water, there's no food system. Water is one of the world's most precious natural resources. Certainly it is vital for nutritional security, fisheries, livestock, energy production, household needs, health, and also the maintaining of the ecosystem health. Water certainly is crucial to food production, enabling the production of over 95% of food on land throughout all steps in the value chain. Here we talk about the food produced on land, and here we talk about the water, namely the freshwater part. Certainly, the salty water in the oceans produce another 5%, roughly another 5% of the food we eat. You can imagine, I think you all know the importance and you all know these kinds of statistics. The agriculture is responsible for over 70% of global freshwater, human freshwater withdrawals, which makes the main water sectoral user globally. However, global water availability and quality are deteriorating at the alarming rate. Water challenges such as the droughts and floods are increasingly due to climate change, and they also putting the planet's water resources and increasing stress. Mismanagement of water resources combined with the pollution further increases water stress and the already rising competition about the water. These challenges hinder the progress towards the global food security and the sustainable development goals. When looking into the future, due to global population growth and also other future trends such as urbanization and change in the diet patterns, to produce the needed agricultural products by 2050, our global demand of freshwater is projected to be increased at least by 24%. We're already living in a very water scarce world. Where can we find the additional 24% of freshwater to achieve that objective? It's going to be much, much more challenging. And certainly meeting this increased demand while pursuing sustainable practice and minimizing adverse environmental impacts is therefore a significant challenge for all sectors, for all users, and particularly for agriculture. Now, knowing that agriculture plays such an important role for sustainable water management and vice versa, agriculture is also a game changer in international and national policies on water, right? However, when we look at the water action agenda, that's basically all the commitments that announced during the UN 2023 Water Conference, only 13% of those commitments is about agriculture. On the other hand, you could also expect that water have been well reflected in the national food-related policies and strategies, such as the national pathways for food systems transformation, right? But however, this is also not always the case. As that my colleague Nathalie Dubler will elaborate on this point later when she shares the insight on the analysis of the integration of water in the 116 national food security pathways. What we can take away from this is that water is often still managed and perceived as a separate sector instead of being recognized as the fundamental or foundational natural resources that's cutting across all the issues and cutting across all related sectors. At FAO, we strongly believe that we need to overcome this silo thinking and silo practicing, silo planning, so as to ensure food security and water security could be achieved hand in hand in the future. Due to the manifold and complex interlinkages of water and food, FAO is strongly promoting adoption of an integrated approach to water management for agriculture and food security by adopting integrated water resource management and water, energy, food, environment nexus approaches. In fact, water has also been selected as the theme of the 43rd session of FAO conference last year. That's the first time. And also being selected as the biennium theme for FAO governing bodies this year and next year. Water is well mainstreamed in all FAO corporate strategies, from the strategic framework to the strategies on climate change, on biodiversity, on science and innovation, and also being included into FAO programming priorities that's in the current biennium, but also in the future. But what does that mean concretely? And how can we make sure that this mainstreaming of the water into the national policies and the adoption of integrated approach is also promoted at all levels? One way we can think of this is that the national pathways for food system transformation, as I mentioned previously. And these documents set the directions of how a country plans to achieve sustainable food systems transformation. And the inclusion of water into these pathways and also in related national strategies and policies could be a very important contribution for promoting both food and water security in future. Through the policy assistance and guidance, FAO and the Food System Coordination Hub are supporting members to promote more integrated and aligned holistic policies at national levels. I'm therefore delighted that today's webinar will focus on the role of water in this important policy document. And I'm wishing all of you to have a very fruitful discussion in the next hour. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Li-Feng Li, for setting the scene for today's webinar with your opening remarks. So I will now move on to giving the floor to Ms. Nathalie Dubler from the FAO Land and Water Division. And Nathalie Dubler will give us a presentation on the preliminary analysis from an FAO-led review on how water is reflected in a number of national food systems pathways. Over to you, Nathalie.
Thank you very much, Mia. Thank you very much, Li-Feng Li, for this nice introduction. So good afternoon, morning or evening, everyone, wherever you are based at the moment. My name is Nathalie Dubler. I am a junior professional officer here in the Land and Water Division in FAO, and I'm delighted to walk you through a bit through the role of water for sustainable food systems transformation, adding a bit to what our director has just said in his opening remarks, but then also to dive in a bit more into details on the analysis of how water is integrated or is not integrated in national food system pathways. So as we have heard, water is an essential role, not only for food systems, but actually for the entire 2030 agenda. It contributes to the environment, it contributes to food production. It's contributing to healthy lakes and wetlands, as well as forests, for example. And we have also heard that freshwater resources are currently depleting at an alarming rate. So we need to look into how we use water for different sectors, including the trade-offs and synergies out of these different uses. On a more positive side, though, solutions do exist to these water-related challenges, and it will depend on political will and joint efforts to really implement these solutions in the necessary time. And for these solutions, agriculture plays a crucial role in finding them and also in implementing them. So as we have just heard, I will not go through detail through this slide anymore, but as we have just heard, agriculture accounts for 70% of global freshwater withdrawals, which makes it the biggest water sector user. And we have also heard demand will increase on water, and therefore we need to look at the use of water in a cross-sectorial perspective. So we have heard that in the Water Action Agenda, agriculture has not really been integrated a lot, so only 13% of the commitments included agriculture and food. And vice versa, we also see, if we look at, for example, nationally determined contributions or national adaptation plans, as well as climate change strategies, for example, that water strategies or policies are often not well mainstreamed. And so this is why here in the Land and Water Division, we were wondering, how does that look like for the National Pathways for Food Systems Transformation, which is a crucial document for achieving FAO's mandate of ending hunger and ensuring food security for all. And so what we did in the Land and Water Division is we wanted to analyze these pathways on the integration of water. And we did that in 2 rounds. So we assessed the 116 national pathways that were submitted as of July 2023. So it's important to say that we only included the pathways up until July 2023. If countries have updated or submitted their pathways after that, these are pathways that we did not include into this analysis. And so on a first round of analysis, we went through these pathways, really broadly assessing them on the wording they used, the terminology they used, if they included water as such, but also if they included water relevant or related issues, for example, irrigation or wetlands, these kind of wordings and terminologies. And what you can see on the right side of this slide is that in 30% of the pathways after this third round of analysis, we see that water was not at all addressed. And then in the majority of the pathways, it might have been addressed, but very little or very unclear. So maybe we could see that the word water or the word irrigation was included in the pathways, but then no action or measure was following up in this section. So it was maybe just listed as one of the different topics to keep in mind for food system transformation, but it didn't go further into that. And so we thought, well, this research might be still a bit vague since it's only used on the terminology. And so we agreed to continue with that research, and we went into a more in-depth analysis of the pathways. So we applied a qualitative document analysis by assessing 10 indicators within the pathways and ranking them from 0 to 3. And so 0 would mean the water was not integrated in the pathway at all, and 3 would mean water has been very well mainstreamed and integrated in the national pathways. I will come to the indicators just later. What we have found in this second round of analysis applying these indicators was that 22 countries explicitly acknowledge water resources as a pivotal issue for advancing the national food system pathways. And so this is actually a very nice result. It's few countries, but there are some countries that really do acknowledge this importance, and that can then also serve as best practices or best examples for maybe inspiring other countries to follow a similar line with their pathways. 13 countries, on the other hand, completely omitted the topic of water, so they did not include it in any way, nor irrigation or watershed management. It was not included at all. And 45 countries have not scored more than 1 in any given indicator. So that means they might have touched upon the issue of water, but really did not go further into details on that. Now, when we look at the ranking per indicator, so in this slide, you will see in the bottom, you will see the different names of the indicators listed. These are the 10 indicators that we used to assess the pathways on. And as I said, we can unfortunately see that water was really not well integrated in most of the pathways. However, what we also see that the one indicator with highest integration among among all the 116 pathways was the one on institutional coordination. And I think this is really a very important point, also following up on what we have just heard from Mr. Lee, that this cross-sectorial collaboration is really key if we would like to overcome the sectoral view or the silo thinking as well that we often face with water. So really bringing together the different sectors within the country is crucial to mainstream water and to really link agriculture and water in national policies. So I think this is a promising result as well. It might be as well due to the fact that approaches such as integrated water resource management or also the water, energy, food, environment nexus have gotten increased attention, both in the political agenda internationally, but also in research and academia. And so this could be also a result of that both of these approaches have called for really stronger cross-sectorial coordination and integration.
Nathalie, sorry for stepping in. Just 2 minutes left, maximum.
Yes, this is the final slide.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Mia. So what we did after this analysis of the pathways is we wanted to come up with some really implementable policy recommendations as well. And these are 5 policy recommendations that you can see here on the slide. So one of them would be to really adopt a system thinking approach. What I have just mentioned, that not only to look at water or to look at food from sectorial perspective, but to really think them within a system together. Then also enhancing cross-sectorial coordination and collaboration. And I'm actually very happy to know that we have a representative of the Kenyan government here with us today, because Kenya actually mentioned this cross-sectorial coordination a lot in their pathways, and they really also showed practical examples of how they're doing this. So that is another very important issue. The third recommendation would be to develop inclusive water governance systems and mechanisms. So to really look at local communities and their integration and participation into water governance decisions. Fourthly, to consider and include ecosystems and their services into policy and planning. So really not only to looking at water for agriculture, because we're talking about the food systems, but really to take a whole ecosystem approach on this and see what ecosystems could also provide for better mainstreaming water and better using water for agriculture. And then lastly, improve agricultural water management practices beyond water use efficiency. So water use efficiency is a very commonly used approach to save water for agriculture and produce more with less water. But there's also other approaches, such as, for example, the reuse of wastewater for agriculture. That can be a very interesting and promising issue to look into. That some pathways, for example, the one of Hungary, also elaborated quite detailed on this. So to conclude, actions need to be enhanced to really manage and integrate water into different national policies and strategies. And it's great to discuss this issue further today. And I'm also delighted to maybe hear a bit more about the Kenyan representative, why they managed or integrated water so well in their pathways. And I'm looking forward to the further discussions. Back to you, Mia.
Thank you so much, Natalie, for this insightful presentation. I'm sure that there are a lot of questions that have been raised listening to you. So I'd like to take the opportunity now to remind all the audience that if you have any questions, you can add them in the chat box and we will address them later during the Q&A session. In the interest of time, I'm going to move forward rather quickly. We have now an excellent panel of speakers who will be sharing their experiences and insights on the linkages between water and food systems. And I will be introducing them one by one as we go along. And as Natalie mentioned, we have a representative from the Kenyan government who will be here today with us. And it's my pleasure to introduce Maurice Opondo, Director for Irrigation and Water Management at the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation in Kenya. And Mr. Opondo, we have prepared a question for you. And the question is, could you please share some insights from Kenya's experience in developing your national pathway? Why was it crucial for your country to include water in your food systems transformation priorities? And how did you go about including various stakeholders to ensure an integrated approach? The floor is yours and you have about 5 minutes. Let's see, Maurice, if you are with us here.
Good afternoon, and thank you for organizing for this important session. To discuss the crucial role of water in food systems transformation. As you have rightly said, my name is Maurice Opondo. I work as the director in charge of irrigation water management in the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation of the Republic of Kenya. Because of the little time, I will go directly into the question that have been raised. I would like to share some insights from experience we used in developing, experiences we had in developing our national food system pathway and priorities. And I want to first say that we identified with the stakeholders 5 priorities areas. One is on nutrition. That is, we want to improve that diversity of diets. 2, we want to enhance the digital agricultural solutions. 3, we want to address the issue of climate action and climate resilience in our food system transformation. And then the 4th one is increasing the number of young people and women that have access to productive resources that they require to participate in the food systems. And finally, we added the last priority pathway as partnerships and finance to actually address partnerships and collaborations we require in the transformation. Now, in the process, these were some of the experiences. In Kenya, it's unique that we have the devolved systems of government. We have 2 levels of government. We have the national government and the county government. And in any policy or strategy formulation, the national government takes lead because policy is the work of the national government. But because policy is implemented at the county government, the national government takes the lead in formulation of any policy or strategy, like now these food systems pathways. The national government took the lead, in consultation with county government and other sector players like the ministries of agriculture, livestock, fisheries, irrigation, cooperatives, lands, ASAL, that is arid and semi-arid areas, among other ministries within the government, and also the county government. They form a lead secretariat to start drafting. Once the drafting was done, then the next step was consultations. And in the consultation process, it was such that there is an organ called Joint Agriculture Forum that comprises county and national government. It comprises 5 members from the national government, 5 members from the county government, who sit to look at this policy and ask, does it talk well to the lower levels of government, that is the county governments? Have the county governments been well entrenched into the policy documents? Then the suggestions are brought. And here sits 5 ministries from the national government. Irrigation sits there, cooperative sits there, livestock sits there, fisheries sits there, then agriculture crops sits there. They can also co-opt other sectors. So they look at the document, and then once they find that the issues of devolved governments are well entrenched, then it is passed to go to regional or regional level consultations, now with this local level stakeholders. So once the local level people give their views, then the views are incorporated, and then the draft was refined, and then a refined draft passes again through this organ, the one I call sector working group. Then once that goes through, it is validated, and I think that was the process we went through. But some experiences from this process, that is that one, it is a long process, but actually it is very inclusive, but long process. It requires good coordination and good structures in place. And these structures are actually formal structures that are recognized by the sector. Then another important observation is that in terms of budget, a lot of consultations go with a lot of budget implications. So adequate budgets are usually have to be set aside to support this consultative process, which actually goes up to the grassroots level. So I will stop there for the issue of the experiences on the process. Then the next question is, why was it?
Sorry to interrupt you. I think we will keep the other question for later. So you'll have the opportunity to expand on the other question later, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maurice Opondo, for sharing this good example of a cross-sectoral development of the national pathway and the work that you have done in Kenya. I think in the interest of time, we will move to the next panelist, and we will have an opportunity to have some additional discussions later. It's my pleasure to introduce our second panelist, Ms. Tamisha Lee, who is the president of the Jamaica Network of Rural Women, and she's representing the World Farmer Organization today. So, Ms. Tamisha, we have a question for you. From your perspective as a farmer representative, could you tell us about how you consider water, why you consider water as crucial for food production, and what you would like to see in terms of practical action to strengthen the water-food linkage in national policies? Over to you. You have about 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Moderator, for your question. Good morning, good afternoon to our attendees, wherever they are in the world. It is an awesome and incredible pleasure to be representing the World Farmers Organization at this very important event on water. To respond to your question, why is water crucial for food production? Frankly, water is life. It powers production, it powers the soil, it sustains ecosystems, it nourishes livestock, It keeps processing plants and facilities clean and ensures food safety and quality in an interconnected water, food, energy, waste nexus. No water, no food. Water interacting with sunlight, energy is essential to all food production. It is also easy to take for granted, but the next drought and every producer, primary and secondary, immediately recognizes its importance. Without adequate water, food production systems collapse, threatening food security and livelihoods. The water, food, energy, waste nexus highlights how these elements are interconnected. Water powers energy, nourishes crops, processes waste, and influences soil and ecosystems' health. Healthy water systems are essential to maintaining food safety standard and supporting long-term agricultural productivity. What are some practical actions to strengthen the water-food linkage in national policies? We need to develop an inclusive, integrated water management and resources policy and prioritizes drought resilience, improve irrigation production, protect ambient water quality, example, rivers, lakes, and oceans, basically preventing pollution and chemical emission from factories, effectively manages stormwater, enhances water treatment, storage and distribution system, emphasizes efficient reuse and circulatory at the home and office through circulatory. Rainwater harvesting and use of cisterns and other technologies to enhance water efficiency and building capacity for efficient water use. Over back to you, moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much for these reflections, Tamisha Lee, and we will have an opportunity to talk to you a bit later during the Q&A session. Our next speaker is Ms. Katarian Tervisha van Scheltinga, who is a senior researcher in water management from the Wageningen University and Research. Katarian, we have a question for you. From a research perspective, could you tell us more about common challenges in integrated water food policies and how these could be overcome? Please share concrete examples and practices if you have. You have about 5 minutes. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mia, for giving me the opportunity to speak in this important event. I feel, of course, that I would like to solve the difficulty, but as we already noticed about the water blindness, it's not an easy point to overcome it. Because overall what we see is that we are facing various uncertainties and also a number of complexities when we want to address both water and food in the same frame. The water people in general, they think about the water system with the rain falling down and the water finding its way through the river and then to the sea, evaporating via crops or directly, and thus in a way kind of having a water cycle. But the water system also includes rules and regulations about how we organize ourselves to manage that water. Typically, people working on the water system don't bother much about the food. And that's also
Let's see, at least for me, Katarian froze. I guess it's the same for others.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
frozen.
Yeah,
We
okay.
have lost, yes.
We have lost.
You're muted, Mia.
Sorry, my mistake. Let's wait for her to come back and continue her presentation. Meanwhile, I think we can hand over to Mauricio Pondo for a question. We have here, for example, If you could, we have a follow-up question for you on if you could give some concrete examples on how you have worked in Kenya to better mainstream water into the, let me see, national strategies. So over to you, Mr. Opondo.
Okay, thank you very much once again. I want to briefly mention how we've mainstreamed water. We have policies and strategies at national and county government level. And water, the starting point is we plan about where is the water footprint, which sectors of the economy need water, and how much water do they anticipate to use based on their plans. So when we start the discussions around water, we look at all the sectors that require water, including hospitality, roads, agriculture, irrigation, housing, so that we try to take care of their needs of the water. However, the Water Act and water policies are domiciled in the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. That is where the instrument of governance is domiciled, under the Ministry of Water. But the other sectors, for example, in the agriculture policy, they actually address the issue of water and the water that they need to use to do irrigation and also to manage water on the farms. In the Department of Irrigation, there is a clear mainstreaming of water harvesting and storage for irrigation. And that comes out very strongly under irrigation. Under energy, also water is addressed because they need water for hydropower generation, and therefore the energy sector also talks or mainstreams water in their legislations and their policies. That is at the national level. At the county level, the Constitution gives county governments the role of water service provision. So at that level also, they mainstream water, the issue of service provision to the local, to every person in their strategies, in their budgets, and in their plans. So that once the water is available, they also talk about how they mainstream or give out the water service at local level. So that is the arrangement that we have, how water has been mainstreamed. But the Department of Forestry also takes lead in conservation of the environment, and in their policy, they also have discussed water, because forests actually give us the canopy that water needs in order for it to be conserved. So basically, water has blueprints in quite a number of sectors, but the ones I've mentioned are the ones that talk loudly about water in their policies and their strategies. But there are others that, like roads, roads have not talked clearly about water in their plans and their strategies, although there have been attempts to bring roads on board because we are advocating for roads for water. So I think basically that is what I want to say in summary, that all the sectors that has footprint in water actually address water in their policies and their strategies, both at the national level and at the county level. But some sectors are still yet to do that. And I concur with the water blindness presentation that has just been presented, that not all the sectors where needs to mainstream water have mainstreamed water. We also have the blue economy.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Opondo. Thank you so much for sharing some more insights on the journey that Kenya has done. You provided some concrete examples to us, and that was very interesting to listen to. We have very little time left, and I would like to give the floor to the other panelists as well. And I see that Katarina has come back. She has joined us again, so I'll give her the opportunity to finish her intervention, 3 minutes, and then we will open up for some questions to the panelists. So over to you, Katarina.
Yeah, thank you very much. Apologies, the line got lost. Despite all good preparations, it happens. What I was about to say about uncertainties and complexities and how we can address those, basically we need to link the food system with the water system. And this we need to do by looking at the different system elements, looking at the different skill levels, and also to kind of do calculations on this, for instance, at basin level and at field level. It was already mentioned to look at agricultural water use efficiency, but that is in a way often seen at the field level. Let's also look at the river basin level in that regard. Beside that, I think we also need to think about our food future, the food system of the future, what is the food basket, and calculate whether we have the water for that food basket. Because if we want to change to other crops, for instance, because that would mean less emissions, which is of course a very good idea, do we have the water for that crop? And for instance, colleagues of mine have worked on a case in Jordan where they already can see now that for 2050, if you need water for agriculture, the water in the river and the groundwater will be enough for the drinking water and the industry. So it's most likely that the wastewater reuse is the best option for agriculture. This will require investments and this will require preparation on the side of many governments. What we also did in Wageningen here is we created integrated insights. I cannot go into detail, but I will put, after speaking, a link in the chat. We made a storyline, how we look at food systems, in this case, in particular in deltas, where it's obvious there is a linkage with the water. And you do need to find new solutions, and you need to find them quickly. So if you have a water scarce situation and you have tomatoes, a water person will immediately say, go for drip irrigation. While, for instance, if you look at the total food system, which is a very useful way also to look at it, you would also see that a lot of the tomatoes may get rotten on the way to the market. So investment in cold storage may also be a good way to solve the problem. So we need to kind of have capacity to do analysis for both the systems. We create this capacity also by exchanging insights together with others. So together with the CGIAR institutes who are working in the initiative Asia Mega Deltas, we exchange views in webinars, what we call Delta Talks, and these are available online. So altogether, we hope that by exchanging information and creating new insights, we will come forward with new suggestions for policymakers. Over to you, Mia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katarina, and I'm happy that you could join us again despite the challenges. Time is really running out. I see we have a lot of questions in the chat box. I wanted to give the panelists, all three panelists, one opportunity to share very briefly, in 1 minute maximum, your key recommendation on how to better mainstream water in national food systems pathways or related strategies or policies. If you have one recommendation that you would give looking forward, and I'll give the opportunity to Tamisha Lee to come in first. Tamisha, over to you.
Thank you again for that question. My key recommendation would be embedding water smart practices and standards into policies, linking sustainable water use to soil health, stormwater management, rainwater harvesting, energy efficiency, and ecosystem protection. As such, mainstreaming water into food system requires a system thinking approach. This involves integrating sustainable water management into agricultural policies, ensuring practices like water recycling, efficient irrigation, and pollution control become standard. Encourage cross-sector collaboration to link water management with energy and waste system, fostering a resilient and inclusive food system that prioritizes environmental sustainability and food security. Over back to you, moderator.
Thank you so much. One key recommendation, Mr. Opondo, 1 minute, please.
Thank you very much. I want to recommend that to mainstream water in the food systems. First of all, it's important to map the key stakeholders that actually in one way or the other talk to water, but that is not enough. It is also very important to actually have a deeper communication and discussion with the stakeholders so that they know their exact role in the water cycle, in the water management. So it's not just about mapping stakeholders, but having a discussion to explain and understand the role of each stakeholder in the management and mainstreaming of the water. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And over to Katarina for one key recommendation. 1 minute, over to you.
First of all, I like to kind of fully support what Tamisha said about the system approach and what Maurice said about the co-creation with the stakeholders. And if I could add anything to that, I think to acknowledge that you work at different levels. So the stakeholders are at different levels, the calculations are at different levels, and we need to link these different scale levels at field, district, regional, and basin scale. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this. Just to conclude, maybe on the key recommendations, a short summary. Include all stakeholders into dialogue, take up a systems approach, and further cross-sectoral collaboration at all levels. That's what I take with me from here. Let's see here in the chat box. I'll give the floor quickly to Ludovica to see if we have any question in the chat box that we could respond to. Let me see. I cannot. Let me see, Ludovica. Okay, let me just do like this. I see that we have, for example, in the chat box, a question that I would like to direct to Lifeng, if possible. And the question is, what innovative solutions can be applied to manage water resources more efficiently, especially in areas suffering from water scarcity and climate change? And how can we use water management to better respond to crises that undermine food security? Lifeng, would you be willing to share some key insights on that question?
Yes, thank you. Let me try to be brief. I think, yes, especially in the water scarce areas, this is a huge challenge. And from FAO's perspective, certainly, again, we need to really look at the system, in particular, both the water and also the land and the soil systems, and managing the soil moisture, and especially in the rain-fed agriculture, is really the practice that's combined with other techniques. And indeed, through the advanced technologies like remote sensing, we can have much more accurate information about the soil moisture, so that we can really use that information to advance, to support the farmers to manage both water and really the soil moisture, and to address the water scarcity challenge. Certainly, in those dry areas, we also need to look at some small scale, infrastructures like water saving tanks, and also the rainwater harvesting, and even those are really, in terms of volume, it's small, but you can imagine how precious water resources in those and also combined with the technologies. For example, even look at the crop perspective. Certainly, certain crop can be much more drought resilient, and so through our research, we also work with partners and the countries to identify those drought resilient crops that can be much more resilient and tolerant to the event like water scarcity and drought. So promote those crops again. So really look at the technologies, but also the water, land, and the soil systems, as well as the crop system. When there is a possibility, certainly the supplementary irrigation will also contribute a lot. When there's possible solutions, use the mobile irrigation and or supplementary irrigation to address the water scarcity and drought challenges in those areas. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lifeng, for these remarks. So I do see that we have a lot of questions in the chat here, and I am afraid that we won't have enough time to respond to all of them. But for example, one question that I think could be interesting for us to pick up here is how should governments play its role in the management of water, since it's a finite resource. Millions of people don't have access to potable water, and most of it is wasted. What initiatives should there be done to save water? Is there anyone from the panelists that would like to respond to this question very briefly? Maybe the Kenyan representative, Mr. Opondo, do you have any reflections on this based on your country experience?
Yeah, thank you very much. To save on water, I think it is important that we do measurement and metering, both for the potable water and metering devices for potable water, maybe at household level, and also for irrigation. In Kenya, we have started an initiative of metering all our irrigation water at intake level, at block level, and also individual farm level. And it's a practice that is helping to reduce wastes of water. I can really recommend that such an initiative is upscaled to all irrigation schemes to measure and bill water based on every farm. Another thing that we are doing to make sure that there's water is the regulation. We have a regulator which actually makes sure that the players in the water sector are well regulated and actually governed. Those are some two quick reactions I could give to that answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Opondo, for this. Time is really running out, and as I said earlier, we received a lot of questions in the chat box, and I think this shows that there's the interest for this type of thematic webinar is really big. So we will take that as a lesson with us for future webinars. We're moving into our closing session, and I want to, on my behalf, thank all of the speakers for your valuable contributions throughout the webinar today. It's really been an enlightening discussion, and we've learned a lot. And I would like to give the floor to Stefanos Fotiou, the Director for the UN Food Systems Coordination Hub, for some concluding remarks, and he is joining us directly from Baku. So over to you, Stefanos.
Thank you very much, Mia, and good morning, good afternoon to everybody. Indeed, I'm joining from a very noisy COP, and if you hear some background noise, sorry, I cannot do something about this. So I would like to start by saying that water has a fascinating dimension, which I'm still puzzling myself to understand, if it's a renewable or a recyclable commodity. And I'm saying this because I'm a forester, and as a forester, for us, the forest is the most renewable resource we can imagine is timber. And you timber as much as you cut. The moment that you stop cutting, it will grow up again. And you can increase the amount of timber that you have in the block. But when it comes to water, we need to understand that the amount we have is fixed. And the available amount is 3% of the fresh water that we're using. It's also very much polluted. So we need, I think, first of all, to understand that water could not be perceived as a resource that we can use perpetually because it will be available. Yes, the water as a physical, as a chemical material will be available. But clean water, which is what we want, it's really under a very big threat. The second thing I want to highlight is that I listened from the panelists a lot about the community involvement, about the need to have a whole society. And I think this is the basis for anything that has to do with water in the food system. So we do know that 70% of the use of the water is going to the agricultural systems, but we do understand what these systems are extremely important. And here in COP, stays listening every time that it's usually the small farmers and the small problems that they are facing the consequences of climate, the consequences of natural disasters. And we need to understand the importance of the water for these local communities and to make sure, because many times these local communities are in the upstreams, that whatever is happening there, it's really affecting their income, future, their life. Third thing I want to highlight is that I think we have a vast knowledge on what is needed when it comes to integrated water management, what is needed in water management systems. What is something that is missing as an element, and a very good colleague Li Feng has identified this, is that we have these national food system pathways that the countries have put together after the assessment, and water is not so much being used. So I think that it will be extremely important for countries that we want to have a holistic approach on the food systems and how the food systems can support the triple dividend of people economic prosperity to internalize the issue of water into the pathways. Let me finish by saying that in the Green Food System Convention, we also have a new initiative called the Convergence, an initiative to try to synchronize action between food system transformations and climate action. And we have run 3 workshops so far in Brazil, Kazakhstan, and Indonesia, and there's 7 to come in the next month. And there was not a single time that the participants of these workshops, either from Ministry of Agriculture or from Ministry of Environment or from Ministry of National Planning, they did highlight the importance of water when it comes to the transformation of the system. So I think water, use of land, and the use of resources and nutrients is fundamental for the system. So we will move forward to continue in supporting this growth on integrating more the water and the food system. The hub is not implementing this, it's coordinating. Of course, please to continue working. Okay, along the vision of FAO and other stakeholders to make sure that we give the best advice to the National Food System Conveners, which is the focal point of the implementation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Stefanos. And with this, the webinar is closing, and we look forward to having you join future webinars and in the future. And with this, I also want to wish you all a good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world. So over and out from us. Goodbye.